So right now, there's a high probability that this market will just go sideways for potentially several months. Meanwhile, there's also a strong possibility that the market could potentially go down to 50K or so, which is one of my area of interest here. So in the event that the market goes down, I want to move.
Welcome back to the show, joined by CryptoRookies. We're going to get an update on the 20K to a million portfolio. That's something that you've been working on relentlessly. So we'd like to get an update because we want to make sure that we're keeping track of where exactly you are. Obviously, the market conditions haven't been ideal, but I'm curious to see how that impacted your Gridbot strategy.
Indeed. So I'll share my screen. So I just closed two of my bots. On the Bitcoin, I'm down 8%. And on Ethereum, I'm down almost 20%. Both of those bots, the Bitcoin was activated for 56 days and 22 hours. And then the Ethereum bot was 60 days and 22 hours. The reason why I terminated both down while they were in the negative return is because right now we have issues with Japan in terms of macroeconomics, and this could very well have repercussion on the U.S. market. And I think the Bitcoin ETF over the past week has been struggling in the U.S., even though Hong Kong has just initiated a Bitcoin ETF and a Ethereum ETF. The results so far after one day has not been that great. But the thing, it's if you look at at least on the Bitcoin chart, it's not, we're on a downward trend at the moment. And the thing, this is unclear whether or not it's just a sideways market between 60K or 59K and 74K. But I think it's entirely possible we are just in a sideways market because there's still a lot of appetite for the ETF and for Bitcoin in general. And then if you look at past historical data after the halving, the market typically goes sideways for several months before the bull market really kicks in. So right now, there's a high probability that this market will just go sideways for potentially several months. Meanwhile, there's also a strong possibility that the market could potentially go down to 50K or so, which is one of my area of interest here. So in the event that the market goes down, I want to move all of the capital on my bots to Binance out of Bybit. And the reason is because Binance, and I think I just moved all the money. So I started off with 6,506. Now I'm up to 9,808. I was up like to 13K just a few weeks ago. So I did suffer some losses in terms of US currency, but I had accumulated a lot more Bitcoin and Ethereum overall. But the point is that right now I will redeploy this onto Bybit. And the reason is because I have access to CoinM grid bots. And those don't exist on Bybit, unfortunately. So the difference with the CoinM, this is what they call them, is basically that I can create a bot that the profit are generated in the native token itself. So if I have a Bitcoin bot, instead of converting when the price goes up back into USDT, I could convert back into Bitcoin. So this way I just keep accumulating a lot more Bitcoin. If the price crashed to 52K, I don't want to sell early. So that's the main reason why I want to do this. So that's what I'll be doing right now.
So the goal with this strategy is for you to accumulate more Bitcoin as the price goes down. So you're essentially creating this strategy with the assumption that we're going to trend downwards.
But thing, I'm not sure. I would say that it's 50% chance that we go to 52K or so, and 50% that we just do a range between 59 and 60 and 74. So I don't know which is which, but I don't want to take necessarily a chance on that. So this is why I'll be doing that. So this is here the strategy with the CoinM. And then I'll go with the manual settings. So I'll probably
for those
go
watching,
between,
I mean, CoinM may not be available in your country. You know, there's obviously a lot of regulatory red tape, depending on the country that you live in. So, if you have Binance available, you may not have this feature. So just full transparency on that front.
Yeah. I think it's not ideal for that, definitely. Okay, so in order for the coin M, I need to buy Bitcoin right now. I'll just do that right now.
So we're getting a live, real-time look into how you set up your coin M strategy, essentially.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm buying everything. Normally, I would use a limit because sometimes some exchange they play with when you're trying to buy or sell. But in this case, it's Binance, so the price is they don't play too much game because they're a pretty large exchange. So I'll just go buy at the market price. I don't really care on the like making a few dollars here and there. So here, trading bots. Okay. So I have to pick here on the left side. You have the BTC USD coin M. So that's different than just the BTC USDT. So that means that it will settle and keep all the profit in Bitcoin. I go manual long. Technically, I could go neutral, but yeah. So I'll go between, let's say, 48,000 and so I'm picking 48,000 because it's not impossible that you see I put Fibonacci retracement here, and so there's this line here that is about at this size at 49. So I'll go a little bit further down because as you can see on the there's some wicks there, like around there, around there. So 48 seems to be a pretty solid horizontal line of interest. With that said, here, I'll shut down this. We don't need the market session right now. I'll show like a EMA.
What do you think is the likelihood of us dropping to 48,000?
I would not say 50%, but I would say probably a good 30%. And it's not necessarily going to happen tonight necessarily, but like the macroeconomic situation is bad. And depending on what happened with the wars, with everything, it's not impossible that the market could go down before the US and Japan fix the situation by printing money. So I would expect the market to maybe kick back up between 2 months to from now, where May, June, end of June to about September. I would expect the market to go back onto the next leg of growth. So I would expect a good potentially 2 months of either sideway, and sometime in those 2 months, potentially the market could collapse to 52K because people will capitulate. So that's what I'm afraid of a little bit. So yeah, here on TradingView, I'm adding the EMA to show also that it coincides, let's say the 200 days. The thing, the 200 EMA on a daily basis, right now it's catching up to about 52K, which is not far from that 50 to 48. So this entire zone, I think, will be a pretty strong support. That's why if the market collapses below like 59, I think it could potentially go in somewhere in that zone. So that's why here I want to do it between 48, and I'll go back to 74,000. So here I put my lower range at 48. I put my upper range at 74,000. Then I'll put the number of grids in between. And usually I try to aim about for 0.3%. So I'll go maybe this. Yeah, 25%. Okay. So that's not so bad. I will double check how often that would trigger. So basically it's 74,000 minus 48,000. So that's how much delta is in between that range, and then you divide by 120, which is my number of grids. So this means that every $200 or so of price movement, I will be making a trade, either buying or selling. So $200 divided by the current price of 60K, and then times 100. So that's every 0.3%. So it's very common for the market to move about 0.5 to 1 or 2% per day. So that means that the grid will trigger relatively often, which is what I want to make sure is that it triggers often enough. So that's why I want to make sure, like I don't go with the maximum amount of grids, because that means it will trigger a lot more, but then the profit per grid would be too low and the transaction fee a little bit too high in comparison. So I try to aim for usually around 0.3% of grid profit. So that means that
So with
that's
this,
why I pick 120.
with this strategy, what's the ideal situation? Obviously, you want the price to go up because your range is at 74, but you don't want it to go beyond 74. Is that correct?
Thing, if it goes above 74, I'll close down that bot and restart a new one. So right now I need to move my Bitcoin. There we go. Okay, so I still have to wait a little bit for the Bitcoin purchase to confirm. The thing, I had both a Bitcoin and a Ethereum bot. So probably, and I think in this case I had the 10x leverage before, but I'll go back to a little bit below that, probably 5x I would pick for this time. And I'll put half in Bitcoin and half in Ethereum. I think, or two, yeah, because Ethereum
Do you
might
think
be,
as the market goes sideways,
yeah,
as the market goes sideways, how do you think that will impact the rest of the market? Meaning, if Bitcoin goes sideways, what do you think what kind of impact would that have on Ethereum and the other high to mid cap coins?
yeah. The thing, I think some alts may capitulate. It really depends on the liquidity in the market. If liquidity and global liquidity is increasing, then it's possible the alt, if like Bitcoin is stable, that means the alt will probably go up a lot. But if global liquidity is decreasing, which is what my fear is regarding the Japanese and situation and the US, uh, that's why I think with the September election for the US, September is probably a good time where liquidity will go back into the market, globally speaking, across the planet. So, that's what will trigger the next basically big run up. In the meantime, if the global liquidity come back before, and then Bitcoin is still going sideways, then we'll have a pretty big pump on alts. Otherwise, it's like if global liquidity decrease, but Bitcoin remains sideways, someone has to lose, and it will be the alts that would go down a lot, maybe another 40%. So that's why right now, for me, I would prefer to stick to probably Bitcoin because of the ETF at least. Uh, yeah.
But you don't look at this as an opportunity to accumulate more of the altcoins that you like?
But I would rather just accumulate more Bitcoin, and when the market is ready to start pumping, then I'll put some of my profit from Bitcoin into those alts. But my Gridbot strategy is purely on Ethereum and Bitcoin. And I think with the proper leverage and the proper settings of all those things, I can reach about $1 million with a $20 million investment. So, with a $20,000 investment, sorry. So I don't really need to take as much risk with alts, because that's what one of my fear is right now, is that you have to be very lucky to pick the good alts that will scale. It's not like 5 years ago when you had a handful of alts. Now you have thousands and thousands, So picking the right one is very difficult. And if you can achieve good returns with just sticking to Bitcoin and Ethereum, why go elsewhere? Maybe I would stick to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, and maybe just a few others. But I personally, I'm not sure it's really needed to take that much risk with alts.
You mentioned this as part of your strategy before, so obviously you've been very consistent with your message, even before the market really took off. I think you shared a very similar strategy.
Yeah,
So, what,
yeah.
where, so where exactly are we right now in terms of setting up the Gridbot?
I bought with USDT the Bitcoin earlier, and it hasn't finalized. If it hasn't completed the transaction.
Okay, and then once it confirms, then you're able to set up the Gridbot. Is that correct?
Yeah, I haven't played with Binance in a little bit, so there we go. The transfer has succeeded. And I think the reason why I'm going with less leverage this time is because if the market goes down to 52K, I don't want to suffer excessively. Meanwhile, I think if the market goes back from 60 and it just keep ranging here, I'll lose out on opportunity cost, but I'm willing to not max out as much just to protect myself a bit more. And that's the other thing is that if the market, thinking right now I'm putting like I started off with 6,500, as I said earlier, and that is lower than $20,000 investment. So if the market goes down to 52K, probably I'll re-inject an extra 10K of liquidity to into this.
So as the market goes down, your strategy plans to be more aggressive, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people suffered a lot. Like there was like billions of dollars of liquidation that happened over the last 3 weeks or so. And I think my Gridbot, I was still really far from liquidation, but I did suffer still a bit compared to the top of the capital that I had. But still, like in the period of 75 days, I did 75% return. So yeah, I think it's quite acceptable as return goes.
Can you show us the liquidation zones? You know, there's a chart out there. I know you've showed it to us
Yeah,
previously, but once you set this up, can you show us the liquidation zones?
yeah. Right now, I'm just trying to find where is my Bitcoin because I moved it. It's back there. Okay. Okay, there we go. It's here. There we go. Perfect. So I'll put everything in Bitcoin this time around. I will not put in Ethereum simply because I just bought the Bitcoin anyway, and I'll think like Ethereum has been struggling quite a bit. It's not impossible that it would do well over the next month or so, but I think I'm good with just Bitcoin for now anyway.
Yeah, more and more it's looking like next year that if there's a chance that the Ethereum ETF gets approved, from what I hear, there's really not much conversation. You know, not like nothing's really progressing as far as the Ethereum ETF.
Yeah. All right. So the bot has been activated, and let's see the details. So the thing, my liquidation price on this bot would be 23,000. It's very unlikely that it would go back down that much. So for me, I think 48K would be pretty low for this. So that's the reason why I didn't go with the 10x, because with the 10x, I would have been closer to 48K, and I just didn't want to take any risk in this case. And I think I would just suffer more if the price go down that much anyway. So I think with the 5x, I'm still pretty good. And the thing, if the market just goes sideways between 60 and 74, I'm still generating good enough yield for the moment because the thing, if it goes sideways for 2 months to potentially to September, I don't want to be uh, like with the 10x leverage, you end up with spending more on funding fees and all that stuff. So I think this is an acceptable middle ground between the two. Because the thing, it's you don't always go up non-stop, even in a bull market. So
All right. So we'll definitely keep an eye out on that. And if that story remains true and we do remain in this sideways period, then we'll be able to check back a month, 2 months from now and kind of see how that strategy panned out for you.
yeah, exactly. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. And can you show us the liquidation zones?
So as you can see, they liquidated those here with just the last run up. And this one looks like it's a pretty juicy one to go pick up. So I think going down to 60,664 is not impossible. Or they go back up to this, but this is 62. Yeah, 62 is totally achievable for now. And that's on a 24 hours, but so you can check with a different time frame. 60, 62. I think that is pretty tight, so let's go on a 1 month. I think on the 1 month, it looks more juicy on the upper side. But right now, with the economic situation, I think it's more likely that it probably would go down further.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go deeper. Let's say, as you can see here, $50,000. There's some good zone of liquidation. And meanwhile, 57, 58, 50, like all of those things. I think it's not impossible that they would try to go there. And I think that coincides a lot with the horizontal level that we looked at earlier and the 200-day moving average. So
not entirely possible that we could go below 50,000.
below, it could be just a small wick that happened really quickly and then recover. I think it depends how much people will front run this. It's not impossible that it would just go down to wick really quick to, like maybe 57, 55 maybe, and then recover back to be in the range here. That's what people like you see those wicks here?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing, market makers, that's what they do. They send a big wick, it goes back, and then they go back eventually later. But just one wick alone would trigger your stop loss. It would trigger your liquidation price, and then they would go back to a point where that is above your exit. So you end up chasing because now you wonder if it's gonna pump again, and then they get you again and again and again. So I think if it goes to the 48K, I don't think it's gonna stay there for long. Maybe it's just one wick that is just going straight and then coming back up within a few minutes or an hour or so.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks so much for all the information. As always, I'm going to provide the link in the description. You put out really insightful blog posts on Medium, and I know your latest article you're getting ready to roll out, updating your Gridbot. So be sure to include that as well as your contact information if anybody wants to connect on X.
Yeah, if I can say a few words of final
Absolutely.
words. I don't know if you saw this happening, but on Eigen layer, it was a restaking platform on Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big like scandal going on right now.
Yeah.
So it
About
turned out that
VPN.
yeah, it's like basically the airdrop. First of all, I got almost nothing for the Ethereum that was locked. I ended up paying more in fees than what the airdrop is worth. So it was a complete waste of time overall. But what's worse is that the airdrop will be locked longer than the VC that came in at a much earlier time. So the VC have the opportunity to dump on retail users, and people are outraged right now about this. And there's even some insiders that knew exactly which block the snapshot was taken for the airdrop, and then they took out all of their liquidity at the exact end of that block. So obviously they knew exactly when the snapshot would be taken. So the thing they shared insider information to people who they should not have, and other people did not have access to that information. The entire crowd right now is outraged about what happened. So it's not looking good. I've seen a lot of people saying that they would be shorting as hard as they could just to try to drag them down and kill their project. So Definitely not fun
It,
to see when this happened because it's bad for the industry overall when like some members of the industry, like especially the big money, have an advantage over people with less money. That's just not fair, and it's counterintuitive compared to what decentralization is all about. Definitely a bad
yeah,
move
and
on
this
our
kind
part.
of, well, it also raises the entire debate, right? Is it better to
Yeah.
look at projects that have, as like a market cap that's as close as possible to, fully diluted value? Would you rather invest in something with a higher ratio of market cap to fully diluted than some of these other projects that have a lot of hype because their technology is great, but the potential may not necessarily be there.
Okay, so the debate right now is whether or not retail users should just buy into meme coins. So when you think about it, like let's say Eigenlayer, if it's funded by VCs, they fund the technology, and then when they launch their project, it's mostly VC that benefit, and retail investors just get screwed. Then why not buy into meme coin, where you build the community first, and then you build the technology later? Because a meme coin that has the liquidity, anybody can decide to just build technology on top of the meme coin later to make it more legit later. That's what's happening with Shiba Inu. It happened with Dogecoin and so on. So in this case, if you launch just as a pure meme coin, the chance that VC get involved is much less. So you have a chance to go back to the original intention of having a decentralized system. We've seen meme coins where people use wallet swarms, like VCs can hide their track and get large allocation of meme coin early on. But when the community find that out, usually they abandon the project. So it's not great. But like there's sometimes a case where, like for example, the Gummy airdrop that has been launched by crypto banters. I think they took a lot of precaution to make sure that it was not whales and big money that got in there early. And they have like 53,000 users so far. So it's more users and more decentralized than Doug with Hat. So I think the project will probably do really well, especially that Banter are pushing it, even though they didn't allocate an allocation to themselves. So I think there's a large debate right now that maybe meme coins are not as evil as, or like kind of taking advantage as retailer as much as other project, simply because typically speaking, VCs don't get involved as much with them, and it's harder for them.
Yeah,
They have
that's
to hide
that
their track and all that stuff.
That's debatable. I recently talked to Max of Archway, and he
Yeah,
personally thinks that there's something going on in the background with some of the meme coins.
yeah, some
Uh,
of them definitely. But
yeah,
some others, let's say you have to use wallet swarms to hide your track. But I think it makes it a lot more painful for VC to invest, and a lot of their LPs will not allow them necessarily to participate in meme coins. So you have much less of a chance to get screwed by like big money into the meme coin world. Most likely
yeah,
you get kind of abused by whales, but they are not like VCs that come in as a large entity with as much money.
yeah. It is kind of creating a stronger narrative for the meme coins, right? So we'll see
Yeah.
if during this, you know, consolidation period, the sideways action, if we're still going to see some spurts of meme coins. That kind of tends to happen when the market is boring. People need something excitement. They want to go and
Yeah.
have a little bit of risk in the, have some skin in the game, so to speak. So we'll see. But thanks for filling us in with the latest on Eigenlayer. As I mentioned, from a technology perspective, I think there were a lot of people that were excited about the technology, but it sounds like things are not trending in the right direction for them.
Yeah, technology-wise, it's kind of good, although there's a lot of risk involved in something like that. Like last bear market, what kind of triggered it was using over leverage by a lot of hedge funds and stuff. Uh, this bull cycle, a lot of people think it's potentially restaking narrative that could cause a downfall of the market. Because I think
It's
the
possible,
risk
yeah.
there is kind of difficult to interpret. It's kind of like back in 2008 with the credit swap collapse and all that stuff in the real estate market. When you make some complex kind of like a derivative like this, it's a bit hard to evaluate what is the true risk involved there, because if one of entity in the pipeline of risk-taking collapse, what happened to the rest? Potentially, it's
Mhm.
that would break down the entire system in terms of the entire bull run. So anyway, there's a lot of risk there. So yes, in terms of technology, it's interesting, but could bring risk that we haven't fully been able to analyze so far. So no matter what, I think they shot themselves in the foot with how they process the airdrop and all that stuff, but that has nothing to do with the technology itself. So
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye out on that as well. That's why we're in the industry. So
yeah.
thanks again for all the insights.